have taken to the streets on a regular basis with racist protests, trying to attack mosques and so on. So it was very worrying, and the threat's still there.
But why not let the people decide?
Well, there's a couple of things.
You seem to be against democracy.
Not at all. First of all, our main message is use your vote to stop the fascist BNP, and that's our message in the run-up to these elections. The majority of people are against the BNP in the northwest as elsewhere. The problem we had last time, and the problem we have now, is that the BNP only needed about 8% of the vote to win that seat. That's a minority vote because of the proportional representation system. This year, they only need 7% of the vote to be re-elected. So the majority are against the BNP, but if we are to make sure that Nick Griffin doesn't get in on that small vote again, we need to make sure there is as big a turnout as possible and to mobilise the majority.
Okay, let's just clarify for our viewers. You're non-party political.
That's correct.
You're encouraging people to use their vote and vote for any of the mainstream parties.
We are simply saying, use your vote to stop the fascists. We're not saying who people should vote for. We have
what are the mainstream parties?
No, we're just saying use your vote. Yeah, and that people will make their own decision as who to vote. So we have people involved in UAF who are from all the mainstream parties and smaller parties as well, and indeed no party. Our message is very simple. Get out there, use your vote, because the more people who vote, the less chance Nick Griffin has of getting in.
Now, let's just reflect. 2009, you failed. UAF failed to stop Nick Griffin. Do you accept some responsibility for that?
I think that's the wrong way to look at the question, to be honest. I think,
but it is a question. You set up a campaign to stop him and you failed.
Well, I don't agree with that. I mean, I think there's a number of things going on, but actually, I think a bigger question is all of us have a responsibility on that, and actually, all of us have the possibility of failing again. Nick Griffin could get in again, so it's very important that we ring the alarm bells now to say to people, this fascist could still represent you for another 5 years. We need everyone to use the vote. It was a defeat. It certainly was a defeat in 2009. We don't want another defeat. It's absolutely vital we make sure Nick Griffin doesn't get in. We need everyone to use their vote, because the threat is very real. People are writing off the BNP. He could still get in.
You still not answered my question. Do you, as UAF, take some responsibility? Because you set this campaign up, you got people galvanised, and you weren't able to stop him getting elected.
No, I think there's other reasons for that. I think one of the reasons, and this is something else that is actually going to be worse going into these elections, is actually the wider climate of racism being whipped up against migrant communities, migrant workers, against the Muslim community, against immigrants and asylum seekers and so on. It is that new racism which the BNP fed off, and some of the media have to take a responsibility for that. The fascists can only grow, really, if there is a climate of racism. Yes, it was a minority vote, but some of that minority definitely bought into that racism. So, there's factors like that came into play, and that's going to be worse in these elections. I think we've already seen UKIP, BNP panic, creating hysteria about immigration. Those lies have to be countered.
I'm sure we'll explore this very shortly, but let's get the Conservative Party response. Are you dreading these elections?
No, not at all.
You've got UKIP biting you at the back.
Can I just say, you must not look into by-election. By-election is the protest vote.
No, we're talking about the European. We're talking about the Euro elections up and coming.
Let me just come to this, because Nick Griffin was elected because the economy was so bad at that Labour time. Now, economy has turned.
So you're blaming Labour?
The economy was
blaming
bad.
Labour?
Economy was bad. People will protest. People will take their anger on somebody else. These people are elected.
It's interesting how you want to talk about the BNP, and when I ask you about your party's chances, are you worried about UKIP overtaking you as number two?
We're not
worried
at all.
Possibly?
We're not worried at all. What you're saying, Shafiq, in the by-election, this is a protest vote.
No, we're talking about the Euro elections.
Even the Europe election will not happen again.
That's a protest vote as well.
No, there won't be any protest vote at all, because we are the only party who's offering people the opportunity to referendum. If you won the next election, 2015, we said, you have the choice. We are the only major party who are willing to offer the people a choice.
But haven't the coalition agreement between the Liberal Democrats and the Conservative Party had an inbuilt legislation passed by William Hague, led through Parliament, which said that if there was a transfer of power from Westminster to Brussels, that would automatically trigger a referendum. So the referendum chances there already.
No,
you're playing a bit of politics there. It is.
No, it wasn't, Shafiq. We are the only main party whose the interests of representing our people there. And there's no power there. Europe. We have more power than any else in there. So we are the only major party who's offering.
So you don't accept that William Hague passed this bill?
No. It wasn't a bill. Okay. I don't think this is what you're seeing in the UK. They just disappear. In the European election, you will see they just will disappear, because
in terms of their parliament, Westminster. You're talking about Westminster elections.
How the economy is doing now under this government now, economy is doing a lot better. Just to give you some figures, Shafiq. Today we're seeing 125,000 unemployment gone down. Each month the unemployment is gone down. This election will be based on the economy, not
on the economy.
Well, economy is the major factor, because when the economy is doing badly, it turns somewhere else. People has realised these two other parties, they have nothing to offer.
Now, I just want to ask you one more question. I want to ask you one more question, and I want to talk to Issan as well. I just want to ask you, I remember sitting here and we're talking about the economy, and you told me that the economy is going to get better.
It is getting
better. Do you feel better that the economy is getting better
now? It is.
Now?
Oh, exactly, yes. You can
look are you glad you've been proven right? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, yes. We said that. We took some difficult decisions, but now we can see the fruit of it. The employment is going down. The inflation is going down to 1.9. This is what the policies do now. People seeing that, in fact, people are seeing it now, the fruit of it. So we prove to people that we are the only major party who can turn the economy around.
So you're kind of looking forward to the European elections?
Yeah. Because
you're looking forward to being stuffed by UKIP?
No, not at all, Shafiq. We're going to fight. On our record, our record clearly shows the economy has turned, because our policies, and you can see the unemployment figures, every month's going down, the interest rate being kept so low, there are more people, there's something like 30 million people are more in employment since the record started. Okay, just to finish, today, there are more women than anybody else, and the record shows.
Okay, I'm sure we'll pick this up very shortly. Issan Ghazni, I mean, if it's bad for the Tories, it's even worse for the Liberal Democrats.
Well,
polling 8% in opinion polls, there's not a chance that you would get elected or any of your European parliamentary colleagues would get elected.
Yeah, well, I think we've got to look historically at the way the Liberal Democrats during midterm have always had low electoral poll figures. But what you will find that as you get closer to the election, there's always a 4 or a 5% jump in the opinion polls in the direction of the Liberal Democrats, whether that's at European level, whether we talk at local level, or whether you talk at Westminster parliamentary level. And the sort of polling we need to get our European candidates back in is not an impossible figure. So we're not overly concerned. We understand the climate we're in. We're in a very difficult economic climate. We're coming out of the longest, the biggest recession in living memory. But one thing I will say is that the Liberal Democrats are the only truly pro-European party. We are the only party of the three mainstream parties, the Conservatives...
But you don't want to offer a referendum?
No.
Your coalition colleagues say that let the people decide.
Well, no, I don't think it's about offering a referendum. I think the referendum should be offered at the right time, under the right circumstances. And I think the Conservatives, what they're trying to do is they're trying to out-kip UKIP. And you can't out-kip UKIP. And in our sort of neck of the woods in the East Midlands, when we look at some of the UKIPers, basically, UKIP are at the extreme right wing of the Tory party. So when you drop off at the edge of the Conservative Party, you fall into the UKIP basket. And that's basically what they are. They're a basket case. And so we don't believe that the Conservatives will do well at the election. Their biggest problem and their biggest worry in the European elections are UKIP.
And what does this do for Nick Clegg's leadership? If say, you don't elect any of your MEPs back, and you do a very bad night on the local council elections?
I think Nick Clegg's leadership is safe. Nick Clegg is strong in the party. Nick Clegg has an enormous amount of support, and it's not about whether we do well or bad at the European elections. It's about whether or not we can maintain our message. Because if we are the only party that says that being in Europe is the right thing to do, it doesn't mean that you don't manage to secure a lot of support, that actually your leadership is at fault. We are at the moment, as was said just now, we are in a very, very difficult economic situation. There are massive levels of xenophobia taking place in this country. You can just look at the newspapers and look at the debate taking place around migrants and the fact that they have to now jump over many more hurdles to get benefits, 24 weeks on minimum wage. They've got to be in the country for so long, etc., etc. So there's a xenophobic environment at the moment that we're having to go through. For the Liberal Democrats to be talking and giving a pro-European message under these circumstances is quite difficult. So that's not a reflection on Nick Clegg, it's a reflection on the environment that we're in at the moment.
Okay, we want to explore this very shortly, but let me introduce our fourth guest. He's Councillor Tamoor Tariq, and he is used to be one of the youngest councillors in the country. Tamoor, assalamu alaikum. I know, thank you for your, I know you were being delayed because of the councillor meeting. This is yours for the taking, isn't it? As a party. You're kind of returning from 2009 when Gordon Brown's worst period, the recession had started, the Labour Party were polling very low numbers, and you lost 50% of the vote, say, in the Northwest, of people who normally vote Labour didn't bother voting at all and stayed at home. So there's only one way up, and there's only one way out of it, and that's up, isn't it?
Well, in these coming European elections to be held in May, the Labour Party certainly is not complacent. We know that we've got a challenge ahead of us, and we're organising our local parties, especially here in the Northwest, to do all we can to ensure that we increase our share of the vote and ensure that we increase the Labour representation in the European Parliament. What we are conscious of, obviously, are the challenges around coming from the right wing. That includes both the British National Party and the UK Independence Party. I think both of those pose challenges for Labour, and it's important for the Labour Party to understand and acknowledge that. But certainly we come from a good foundation. We've got more councillors than we had in 2009. We've got increase in membership, and certainly the local elections in the last 4 years have shown an increase in support for the Labour Party across the country. So we're obviously very optimistic, but not complacent, and we're very much looking forward to putting the Labour message to the people of the North West.
But are you worried about, Issan was talking about UKIP, within Sean Sale by-election last week, seeing the UKIP go from 7th or 8th place and go up to 2nd place, with a comfortable second over the Tories and getting all those votes. Doesn't that worry you that you will see people in working class areas, in working class constituencies up here in the north who don't want to vote for the Conservatives, used to vote for the Lib Dems but not going to vote for them now because they're in government, turning to UKIP as a protest vote?
I think the only mainstream political party that's really worried about UKIP is the Conservative Party. Whether they acknowledge that or not,
well, let's go
whether they do that publicly or privately, certainly privately they will acknowledge that UKIP is a threat. That's the only reason that they've pledged an in-out referendum in 2017, which is a big contrast from when David Cameron became leader. Certainly in his first year as Prime Minister, he was very much against a referendum, but he's obviously been pushed as a weak leader by his backbenchers and by the surging UKIP to offer that referendum. But as far as the Labour Party and UKIP are concerned, it's very clear what happened within Shaw. Yes, they became second. By-elections obviously transpired different results than you would expect at Westminster elections. But what is important to note here is the difference between the Labour vote and the UKIP vote. They were way behind Labour. Labour almost doubled their majority. Our vote of the share was over 50%. And in fact, the difference between UKIP and Conservative was 800, which I think then really allows us to see what the clear difference is, that the UKIP vote is very much close to the Conservative vote, and Labour actually held up very well in within Shaw and Sale East, and we've got a good mandate from the people there.
And what happens if Ed Miliband doesn't do well in these elections and the general election next year?
I think there's no reason to suggest why the Labour Party or Ed Miliband won't do well. Obviously, we feel we've got the right messages, whether it's on the economy...
Well, you haven't got the right message on the economy. Well, your party said there was going to be a double-dip recession, that these were the wrong decisions being taken by both coalition parties in government that you weren't going to see the economy grow. The economy's growing, unemployment's down, inflation's down. The country is coming out of recession.
Look,
and you said there was going to be a triple dip. Ed Ball said there was going to be a triple dip recession.
These
and there isn't.
macroeconomic things that you talk about, it's all very good for political pundits and politicians to talk about the economy growing.
Well, that's what people in the street are talking about.
Hold on.
People that's what the street are talking about.
I would disagree.
People
talking about the economy growing every quarter or the unemployment going up. But if you were to talk to the average person on the street, if you were to ask them, do they feel the difference in their pocket? Do they see the difference when they put the food on the table?
So this is the cost of living.
Do they see the difference in terms of their wages? I would argue from the people that I speak to in my ward, they certainly don't see a recovery. This isn't a recovery for the many, it's a recovery for the few.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I will come to you. I promise I'll come to you. But I just want to remind our viewers the lines are now open at 01254 277 370. Let's go to our first call. You're live on my channel. Who are you and where are you calling from? Assalamu alaikum. It's Matloob from High Wycombe. Assalamu alaikum, Matloob. Hello, Matloob, are you there? I seem to think, is Matloob there? Assalamu alaikum, Matloob.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Walaikum assalam.
Yes,
Can
Matloob.
you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear. What would you like to say? Okay, I do apologise. You were waiting for a while there, but I do try not to interrupt my guest too much when there's a caller waiting. Tamoor disagrees with me on that. But please, stay on the line. As soon as we get to you, we'll come to you straight away. But it's the economy, isn't it? It's the point which Tamoor makes, which is people on the street, and you've been out about in East Midlands, knocking doors, people saying it's not better for them.
Yeah, well,
the economy might have grown, the interest rates, inflation has gone down, and employment's gone down, but really, people are still not feeling better, are they?
Yeah, they may not be feeling better, and I'll come on to that point in a second, but I think the Labour Party have yet to accept, I mean, they're in denial, really, in terms of their role in the whole sort of economic demise that took place after Gordon Brown left office. When we took power in a coalition government, we had to clear up one of the biggest messes that we've had in this country. And I recall the time when the Secretary of the Treasury was actually leaving, and Danny Alexander went in. Liam Byrne.
Lord, yeah.
Yeah, and Liam Byrne was leaving, and the new secretary turned up, and there was a note which said, sorry mate, the money's all gone. Now, I think what Labour have got to get into their heads and get out of this sense of denial is that the public have still not forgiven you for the way in which the economy was mismanaged. And in fact, in the opinion poll, you'll see that is still something which the public remember. So on the economy, the Labour Party is still not scoring well. With regard to how the economy is doing now, it's clearly improving, and we're seeing a steady improvement. The figures today that came out in terms of employment, employment is being reduced, etc., etc. I mean, it takes a while for people to feel a difference in their pockets. Today, the rate of inflation was shown to reduce slightly. On the basis of the rate of inflation reducing, clearly people over a period of time will see their wages mean a lot more. And so that will take time. The issue is, for the three political parties, whether or not that feel-good factor, or whether or not the economy will recover sufficiently enough during up to the lead to the general election in 2015 for it to have had that impact on the general public. So in a sense, that's the marker, that's the litmus test. But actually, people do realise that Labour messed up, and I don't think people are going to give Labour the opportunity again to mess up. I think it's a very, very tall order.
And when you're knocking doors, what are voters saying to you on the doors of East Midlands?
Well, people are clearly saying that times are tough. People are saying that times are very tough. There is austerity. Some people, may have lost their jobs. People may have struggled with benefits. But what they do tell me is that they are not prepared to trust a government that ruined the economy in the first place. So, I think the Labour Party is riding high on a decent opinion poll, but Tony Blair, at the same time in the lead-up to the last election, was at least 10, 15 points ahead of the Conservatives in order to form a government. The way in which the Labour Party is progressing at the moment, Ed Miliband is not far enough ahead in the opinion polls to give a certain majority at the next election.
And that's why you'll be interested in coalition.
Can I just come in?
You can, Ashgar. Let's talk about...
I just want to take a couple of points from there. The latest YouGov poll...
Your partner, the Liberal Democrats.
The YouGov poll, 32% Conservative and 33% Labour. And one of the key questions was, do you trust on economy? And majority of people said they do not trust on economy because they, as the gentleman said, they mismanaged in the past, they will do it again. And people said, even, and Miliband has no chance winning the election, clearly. There's no chance at all. So people just have to realize, people beginning to realize that we can't bring the government back. It's messed it up in the last...
What? Just tell me, what does the Conservative Party stand for?
What do you
stand for?
What they say.
What do you stand for?
What we stand for, we will stand for the peoples. We want people to have a better life. That's what we're giving them. As we said...
So all these spending cuts which have led to drastic cuts within the public services, is that making people's life better?
It was a difficult decision, but now we're seeing the fruit of it because the unemployment is going down every month. There are more people in work. Economy is improving, and in fact, the interest is the lowest the interest rate is lowest kept low, and also we are the 7th fastest growth economy.
Okay.
And
are you taking all the credit for that? Or are you going to be nice and give the Liberal Democrats some credit?
No, it's a coalition. It's a coalition. But what I'm saying, all this happened, this UKIP, all this, for us, they came into a situation where the economy is bad because people will protest.
Okay.
If the economy is doing better, these people disappear. It's happened in the past. It will happen again.
Do you feel humiliated that you were pushed into second place within Sean Sale?
No.
And in all these by-elections we've had recently, you've been pushed into third by UKIP.
As I said to you before...
Don't you find that humiliating?
As I said before, we do not read into by-election at all. Because when the election comes, we will take this back. Now, these areas, you're talking within show, these are Labour seat for a long, long time.
Well, Corby, let's take Corby. Let's take Corby. It's a southern seat.
It was a by-election.
It was southern seat, which the Tories won the last... Let me ask the question at least. Okay, I've been told we'll come back, Ashgar. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll carry this on and try to get down to these nitty-gritty issues as to what do these politicians offer you, the voters at home. And we'll hear more about the campaign to bin Nick Griffin from the Northwest. Join me on the other side of this. Welcome back to Debate Now with me, your host Mohammed Shafiq, live from the studios of Ummah channel here in Blackburn, wherever you are watching this around the world. The political atmosphere, obviously, as the run-up to the European elections, and there's also local elections happening on the same day, on May the 21st.
22nd.
I was close. Thursday, May the 22nd. The European elections, which you'll get one ballot paper with a list of parties, and you vote for the party only. So you only have one vote for a party. And then you have the local elections where you can vote for individual candidates. And that's happening on Thursday the 22nd. I mean, Paul, there is this point that there is an element of accusation against UKIP. Now, we would want to have put these questions to UKIP, but they're obviously not here. And we would love them to be here to answer these questions. They've promised they will put somebody up in the run-up to the Euro elections. But there is a sense that they have taken a lot of votes away from the BNP as well.
Well, I disagree with that, Shafiq, for a couple of reasons. First of all, the Wythenshawe result in the by-election actually showed that the BNP vote did not bleed away to UKIP. The BNP vote was down by about 1%. And let's not forget that that area, Trafford, was actually the 4th lowest BNP vote out of 39 areas across the whole northwest in 2009. There's something else that's very...
Within Sean Sale?
Trafford.
Oh, right,
yeah,
the borough.
The borough, yeah. And there's something else here that's very important when we talk about UKIP, and just bear with me for like 30 seconds while I explain this.
Can I just take a quick call? Akram Beg is in Bury. Let's welcome Akram. Assalamu alaikum, good evening.
Good evening, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. What would you like to say?
Well, I'd like to say that our colleague there from Conservative Party was saying earlier on about the employment. Most of the jobs which are created, they're part-time jobs, and in fact most of those people on part-time jobs are actually claiming benefits, high tax credit and other benefits. And a lot of people, these people are actually working 16 to 20 or 24 hours or 30 hours. Most of the jobs created are part-time jobs.
Let me ask you, Akram. I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel better off now that we're out of recession and the economy's growing, inflation's down, unemployment's down?
To be honest with you, I was just going to come to that point, and you know, with very high energy bills, and people do not feel better off. Their spending power has gone down. There are, I think, people who feel better off are probably people who work in bank and get a lot of high bonuses and high salaries. Now, if they get a small percentage of rise, obviously it's a big rise for them, plus the big bonuses they get. But average person in street, honestly, the people I speak to are people I know, or people are my friend who work, they do not feel better off. So I don't know where it's coming from that the economy is better. Who is it better for? Who is saying this? I think Conservatives are in for going to lose a lot of vote to UKIP because the way they have presented a false hope to people that it's a good economy, it's growing. Poor average person is not feeling that at all.
Okay, thank you very much, Akram Beg there from Bury. If you want to join the discussion, 01254 277 370. Paul, let's just briefly explore this because we've got about 50 minutes left of the show, and I just want to get us through as many of those everyday issues like the economy and Europe that we want to tackle about. Just tell me, we were talking about the BNP vote. You don't think it's shifted that much?
No, I don't. I mean, actually, in Wythenshawe, most of the UKIP votes that came over to UKIP actually came from the Tories, absolutely. But just very briefly, it's important to look at how this PR system for the European elections works. So in Wythenshawe, of course, UKIP got 18%. If we translate that into the European elections, they would win one seat on 18%. As they go to contest a second seat, that would be divided by 2. If they win a second seat, as they go to contest a third seat, their original vote would be divided by 3. That takes them to 6%. That means in that scenario, BNP only need to get above 6% to beat UKIP to a seat. There's 8 seats up for election.
In the Northwest.
In the Northwest. So actually, a prospect we're possibly facing is that of UKIP taking 2 seats and the BNP still holding on to that last seat.
But the BNP fighting out with the Liberal Democrats to hold on to that final seat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying this to attack yourself, but I think all the statistics we've seen over the past couple of years is in by-election after by-election, the BNP have come ahead of the Lib Dems. This happened in Wigan, it happened in Stoke.
But you're talking Northwest, and Chris Davis is the MEP for the Liberal Democrats, for those who don't know, here in the Northwest. He's been around for a number of years. He's got a strong base of support in different parts of the region. So there'd be a real tussle between him and Nick Griffin.
But I mean, if we
who do you think would come off better? Are you suggesting that it would be Nick Griffin?
I'm suggesting that's a very real possibility. I can just say that in 2009, if I remember correctly, the Lib Dem vote at the European elections for the Northwest was 14.7%. If that comes down by half, BNP vote flatlines around 7 to 8%. There's a very real chance the fascists could pip ahead of the Lib Dems. We saw what happened in Wythenshawe.
Because that's the struggle for that final seat, isn't it?
That's correct.
That's the struggle, and that's where the BNP would have a chance.
And because it's not a first-past-the-post system, it's a completely different ballgame. And of course, in Wythenshawe, Lib Dems came in at 5%. And as I say, if you look at South Shields, Rotherham, Wigan, Stoke, Ancoats and Manchester, BNP have come ahead of the Lib Dems, and that a lot of the
But if
media
you
have
look
not
at where
picked
the
up
Liberal
on this.
Democrats hold the seat, for example, Eastleigh, where there's a strong local Lib Dem campaign and presence, there's a good base, isn't there? Issan, let's ask you, you're the Liberal Democrat. Eastleigh, you did really well. You hold on to the seat. I mean, reduced majority, but you held on to the seat. So it is part of the Liberal Democrat strategy. Focus on the held seats. Well, and put resources in and just hold on to do as many as you can possible. Yeah, but so you're running 57 or 58 local campaigns.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the European elections, we've got European parliamentarians in every region. So clearly, every region is a target region. So we can't say that. But traditionally, the Lib Dems have got a stronger support base in the south than in the north, a bit like the Conservatives. So our strategy will not be about sort of abandoning certain seats in favour of other seats. We will be fighting every single region, region by region. In my own region in the East Midlands, we're out there working with working class communities. We're out there working with the business communities. We're visiting schools. We're visiting mosques. We're even visiting Eastern European communities. So we're fighting across the board. So if anyone gives you any impression that we will be concentrating in the south and not in the north, that's not the case, because we've got people to protect and to win back in every single region across the country.
And obviously we're in the northwest, and obviously, do you think in that tussle between Chris Davis and Nick Griffin for that final seat, who do you think would win that?
I think Chris Davis will win that, and the reason why Chris Davis will win that is because Chris Davis has been around for a long time, and Chris Davis in the northwest has a really strong reputation. And don't look at the sort of the Wythenshawe result as a reflection of how things are going to pan out. I'm personally very confident that by the time we get to the European elections, we'll have had the usual bounce we get at every single general election, every single European election, of the additional 3 or 4% which will come onto our vote tally. And that, coupled with Chris Davis's popularity, and he is very popular in the northwest, and in particular when it comes to, for example, Muslim communities, he has been very, very supportive of a lot of issues that are important to Muslim communities. If you recall the time when he actually stood up against the treatment he had when he visited Gaza, and he made a very big song and dance about that. So where Chris Davis's loyalties and his politics lie, they're not hidden from the Muslim community. So I'm very confident that Chris Davis will get in.
Well, what we want to do for you, our viewers, in the run-up to these Euro elections, we want to bring together as many of those MEPs. So we've got Sajjad Karim, who is the MEP for the Conservative Party. We've got, we did have Eileen McCarthy, but she's stepping down, isn't she? She was the Labour MEP who just announced her retirement from... Okay, let's go to Warrington and speak to Shoaib. Assalamu alaikum, Shoaib.
Wa alaikum salam, Shafiq. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. What would you like to say?
I just want to put this question towards Issan in particular, but across to all the other party members. I mean, Issan seems to be quite confident that his party will do really well from the way he's coming across. But how can he be so confident that they mostly hold seats in key marginals? And the recent controversy which was stirred up with the Majid Nawaz issue, I mean, the party is actually playing a very blasé attitude.
Just so for our... Sorry, Shoaib, just for our...
Shoaib, are going to actually be supporting them.
Shoaib seems to be on a roll. Shoaib, just for our viewers' sake who don't know about the story, just tell us what the story is.
Well, the story is Majid Nawaz, who's the PPC for the Brent area, down in London, about 3.5 weeks ago, he tweeted a cartoon of the Prophets, Isa alayhi salam and Prophet Mohammed sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But that wasn't just the main issue. That was a cartoon in itself. But along with that, he tweeted a link to the cartoon, which showed the holy prophets, both Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Isa alayhi salam, in bed together, with references to their private parts, in a bar drinking alcohol, and other things as well. And this was taken up with the senior Lib Dem leadership. I myself, along with a few other organizations, went along and met them at Lib Dem HQ.
Okay.
And Lord Ashton was
Shoaib, I'm very conscious of the time, and I don't want... Shoaib,
I mean, how come that the party itself is taking this stance for a person who's going to be standing for people as a public person, and then when he was actually challenged by a number of people who took offense to that, he used very, very explicit foul language.
Shoaib, as much as I want to talk about this, I don't want to get away from the issue of tonight's topic. So you just tell me briefly in 2 seconds what your question is for Issan.
I mean, Issan, what is the party actually going to do regarding addressing this issue?
Thank you very much. Issan, what is the party doing about this?
The party is taking this matter very seriously, and I'm, as chair of Ethnic Minority Liberal Democrats, I'm aware of the seriousness with which Nick Clegg has taken this issue. Also, a number of senior Lib Dem politicians have taken this matter very seriously. Lib Dem HQ are taking it very seriously. I do understand that the whole situation has reached a level of activity which means that at some stage, Majid Nawaz will obviously come forward and engage with the wider Muslim community. I understand he's already put forward an apology on his Facebook site. A lot of people have not accepted that apology, and that's people's right not to accept a person's apology. But I do believe that there are also people out there in the community who are still very, very angry about this issue, and I can understand why they're angry about the issue. All I will say to Shoaib is please bear with us and bear with the party. We are working with relevant people inside the party to bring about some sort of a solution which will allow the Muslim communities out there to feel comfortable and to feel confident about how Liberal Democrat candidates will behave and conduct themselves in the future.
Okay. I don't really want to focus too much on this because I think we've already covered this, but do you want to come in there, Tamoor?
Yeah, all I say, I think we've seen the clear weakness from the Liberal Democrats over this issue. It's clearly an issue that's offended thousands of Muslims right across the country. And what you see with the Liberal Democrats, especially from Nick Clegg downwards, is a failure of leadership. This issue, as far as I'm concerned and what I can read into it, according to Liberal Democrats, has been dealt with. And Nick Clegg has come out on LBC radio to say, yeah, there have been meetings, conversations have been had, and that is the end of it. And Majid Nawaz had the right to express the views that he did, which, in my view, he didn't have the right to express the views of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that offend, thousands of Muslims across the country. So I think the Lib Dems are looking very weak on this issue. It's been going on for a number of weeks, as everybody knows. And as far as the party hierarchy are concerned, I think they've reached a conclusion. Whether other people give a different impression or not is up to them. But Majid Nawaz is still going to remain the parliamentary candidate, and it will be up to the people in that parliamentary constituency to decide what his fate is in 2015.
Okay. Can I just come back on that very slightly? I think there needs to be some clarity as to what Nick Clegg said. What basically Nick Clegg said was that we support the right of any individual to free speech, which is it's a universal right that everybody in this country enjoys. And so that was one element of what he said. But Nick Clegg also said that whenever anybody speaks on a public platform, they must show respect and tolerance to cultural differences and religious beliefs. So he also said that. So I know Nick passionately believes in this whole issue of being very sensitive and very respectful to other faiths. Now, on the that's what he said. But on the other hand, the party has its own internal processes and procedures, and I would ask people to allow the party to conduct its own internal processes and procedures.
And how long do those processes take?
Well, I mean, it really depends upon different cases. And in this particular case, I'm not party to what's actually happening with that particular complaints procedure. But what I'm saying is give the party a chance.
I want to kind of close that because obviously I don't think we're going to get anywhere else about this. And I'm sure as things change in the future and people want to have a discussion about that, we can have a discussion about that. What do you offer the people of the East Midlands that the other three parties don't? What would you do as an MEP if you got elected?
I think the one thing that we can offer the people of the East Midlands is this whole notion of being a champion for Europe. I keep repeating this thing that we are the only party of in. The Conservative Party are toying with the idea of exit and playing a very dangerous game, in my opinion, because, as I said before, they're trying to out-UKIP. So, and the Labour Party are dithering. The Labour Party don't know whether they're in or out. So of the three main parties, the Liberal Democrats are the main party of in. What we've got to remember is that when it comes to Europe, 3 million jobs in this country depend upon Europe. 3 million jobs. In my own region, 114,000 jobs relate to Europe. We have something like about 80 billion pounds of funding that comes in terms of inward investment from Europe. Europe is our biggest export market. More than 50% of our exports go to Europe. So in every respect, and that's not all. We have cross-border cooperation in terms of crime. We have cross-border cooperation in terms of the environment and lots of other issues included. So basically Europe is a fundamental part.
But you don't want the people of this country to have the right to a referendum.
No, we're not saying that people shouldn't have the right to
So why don't you support the proposals for a referendum in 2017?
No, basically because we believe that a referendum should be had in the appropriate circumstances.
What's the appropriate circumstances?
We have always, as a party, supported an in or out referendum. Nick Clegg made that very clear at the last...
So why not have it in 2017?
Because we need to make sure that the economic and the social circumstances are appropriate before you do that. Otherwise, you're going to end up...
How long is that going to take?
Well, the point I'm trying to make is, Shafiq, is that unless you have the right circumstances, what you are doing is you're playing with jobs and the economy. Britain depends upon Europe for jobs and the economy. No sensible party, no sane, balanced party will make a commitment such as the Conservatives have made without considering jobs and the economy. We don't know what the situation will be like in 2017, and what you don't want to do is to mess around with a very stable situation that we have. Okay. We need to have a referendum, but when the circumstances are right.
Ashgar, before you come back, let me ask you. Can I just ask? I'm sure you've got a list of things that you want to get off your script.
I just want to answer. I want to just pick a question from.
Let me ask you a question, and then you can.
I just want to answer Akram Saab's question because I want to make it clear.
Well, which question?
The Akram Saab said most of the jobs are part-time. They're not a part-time job. And plus, the economy is... Okay. These are the independent figures.
Let's talk about Europe, because we've got about half an hour left, and I just want to focus on Europe because it's your elections. The European Union bill in 2011 was a bill which was promised by the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats as part of the coalition agreement, was a bill which did two things. One, that if there was a transfer of power from Westminster to Brussels, would automatically trigger a referendum. Now, you've passed a piece of legislation. The Liberal Democrats didn't really support it as such, did you? It was just something which you give into the coalition agreement. So your party passed a bill, the European Union Bill 2011, passed through Westminster by William Hague, our Foreign Secretary, should we say, our Foreign Secretary, because he is our Foreign Secretary. And the bill which you introduced and was passed to require a referendum before the government could agree to a change of current EU treaties, and to require an act of parliament before the UK could agree to a number of other specified decisions. So, actually, you've already pledged a referendum.
No,
so what's the point of the referendum in 2017?
Can
you make your mind up?
Let me just make clear one thing. First of all, we're not saying we're going to come out of European. Second, The reason we want...
So why have you done a referendum in 2017, which is in or out referendum? This is, you put a gun to the head of Europe.
It's UKIP. UKIP is making them do it.
No, there are a number of issues. There are a number of issues that has interest to us. So this, we can only deal with those interest issues if we give the choice to the people. Because people, as the best people, decide whether... We as a government, we never said we're going to come out.
Can I please, very quickly, if you don't mind, we are playing a very dangerous game here. And can I just say that Europe has a major effect, an impact on the communities who are watching out there, this programme.
We do, and we know that.
And the jobs and the economy are so important to British people. And what the Conservative Party are doing is they're toying with exit. And the reason why you're toying with exit is you're trying to out-kip UKIP. And you've got to stop doing that because you're playing with people's lives.
The government, listen, let me make it clear, we never said we're going to tell people to exist. What we say, we want to offer, because we have
Ashgar, come on, come on. Let's just get this right. I will bring it to Moody in a second, but I just want to get this right. What the Prime Minister said is, re-elect me in 2015 as Prime Minister of one party, so I don't be in coalition. I will go to the European Union, I will renegotiate, and if we don't get what we want, then we'll have a referendum to support an in or out referendum that potentially could lead Britain leaving Europe.
Well, exactly, that's why we're there, because
so you're threatening Europe with a gun,
we want interests of our own people. That's why we gone there. We want interests of our own people. We want a better deal for our people.
Can I ask you, where is Europe not in the interest of the British public?
Because all we get deal...
But please explain, where is Europe not in the interest of the British public?
At the moment, listen, at the moment, we have been far too many people coming to work in the UK. Our country...
Free movement. Free movement to European Union. Okay, we'll bring free movement because I want to pick up the point about immigration. But Tamoor, you want to come in there? But I mean, your party hasn't got a good record when it comes to referendums. You promised one over the Lisbon Treaty, you didn't give us one. And then now you're not asking, what, do you trust the British people to support your stance in Europe?
We absolutely trust the British people.
So why not give it the people a referendum?
I think the main focus here, the main question is for the Conservative Party, because what we see is perhaps a modern-day Conservative Party with a different personnel and a different PR image, but underneath they are the same Tory party of the 80s and 90s who seem to be obsessing over this issue of Europe. And we saw that I think Vince Cable and others predicted that if the Conservatives were to come into government in one way or another in 2010, that this would happen, and that's what's happened ever since the election, ever since the Conservatives have been in government. You've had a group of backbenchers which actually over time has increased, which has put pressure on the Tory leadership, on William Hague and David Cameron to call for a referendum. Over that time, you've seen the increase of support of UKIP and the fear that the Conservatives have. So this isn't really about giving the British people a choice on an in-out referendum. What it is about is David Cameron playing into the hands.
So why don't you give the people of this country a choice to vote in whether they want to be in or out?
When was the last time somebody said to you, and I certainly can't recall this, that Europe was an issue that wasn't affecting them, whether we were in it or
Everybody's talking about it.
What people are talking about actually on the doorstep is about what's affecting them in their daily lives. It's about the fuel bill, the energy bills, their wages, their jobs, what's happening in their local communities. I think you'll find a very small number, if any, that actually obsess over the issue of Europe unless they're Conservative.
So just a Tory and UKIP obsession?
What I'm saying is that in the Westminster bubble, in the political elite, there are certain factions, especially within the Conservative Party, and obviously UKIP...
Some within Labour as well.
And
Ian Davidson.
UKIP are also on this bandwagon about obsessing over in-out referendum.
Can I take a call? Let's take to Manchester. Let's go to Shabina in Manchester. Assalamu alaikum, Shabina.
Assalamu alaikum. I've got a question. Like, I was just listening to what you were saying.
Yeah.
I just got a question I want to say. Like, you're saying about British. Like, do you know, like, people's coming from back home to this country? Because obviously, British people, we're not getting no jobs. It's like hard for us to get jobs here. Because obviously, it's a lot of people from outside are coming into this country.
Yeah.
So how do you want us to help? Like, obviously, we want to have ourselves a job. Like, there's plenty of people not with no jobs.
Are you suggesting that you pause the immigration from outside and help people get some of those jobs covered by people living in this country? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because obviously a lot of people are coming from a lot of countries.
Okay, thank you very much, Shabina there from Manchester. I do apologise, but we have to take a short break, our final break of the show, and then we come back, and I'm sure our panel will pick up this point about immigration, a real concern that people have about the issue of immigration. Join us on the other side of this for our final segment as part of Debate Night here live on Ummah channel.
Ummah Channel's Umrah with our presenters and scholars. Umrah with Ummah.
Welcome back to the Debate Night with me, your host Mohammed Shafiq, live from the studios of Ummah Channel. We're talking about the Euro elections and UK politics. There was a serious point there that Shabina was making, that immigration, it seems to be the second top issue that people are talking about. That, and you know, it's so serious that you've got members of our community who benefited from immigration, their offspring now are saying maybe it's time to just pause and close the doors and help the people who are already here their jobs.
Well, I think there's a number of views on this subject. Certainly in latest polls, immigration in some polls has overtaken the economy in terms of people's concerns. So I think political parties, especially going to the European elections, have to be very wary of that fact. But I think it's important to portray a clear and realistic message about immigration as opposed to what some
opposed to calling somebody a bigot
political party might put out as misconceptions. I think we benefit from the European Union, we benefit from people coming over to the UK, and yes, in some instances, you know, it does create a skilled workforce. But I think for the UK government, it's about a way of managing that. It's about ensuring that we've got a handle on the numbers and seeing how many people are coming in and out of the UK, and perhaps under the Labour government that probably wasn't done, as some in the Labour Party have acknowledged, wasn't done as well as it could have been.
It wasn't done at all. The counting people in and out wasn't done at all.
I wouldn't agree with that.
13 years, and your party didn't introduce any system to count the people.
I think
who
under
came
the
into
Labour
the
Party
country.
we benefited quite a lot as a country from EU migration.
Immigration is not a problem. That's what we should be saying.
You know, what we have to understand, I mean, a lot of the issues nowadays
is that the point which Paul is making, that this narrative on immigration has become so toxic that even you are trying to outdo the Tories and UKIP on how heavy you can be on tackling the issue of immigration, controlling immigration?
No, what we have realised is that people out there on the doorstep do raise the issue of immigration. Like I said, it's for political parties like the Labour Party and other mainstream parties to portray a clear and realistic image around the issue of immigration. That doesn't necessarily mean buying into the message of UKIP or even the Conservatives nowadays. What it does mean is about ensuring that you have a clear policy when it comes to immigration, and ensuring that people that you're hoping will elect you understand and acknowledge that we are far better off in Europe. We also take many advantages from people coming over from the European Union, coming into the UK and being part of our skilled workforce.
I'm sure that we will bring this issue of immigration between now and the election. Like I said, we're going to have a series of discussions with the MEPs, sitting MEPs who are still standing in these elections. And the local elections coming, we'll have local candidates from all the local seats here in the northwest and around England, and also we'll have a special debate with an audience on the issue of immigration. You may have saw the debacle of a Channel 5 discussion of immigration. I promise you it'll be much better and a lot more intellectual than that was. Issan, you East Midlands, very diverse. You've got Lincolnshire, Boston, you've got Nottingham, Derby. It's such a diverse region. Are people talking about immigration?
Well, yeah, they are. I mean,
you suppose knock the door and they see a Liberal Democrat, they see Issan, Ghazni, and
well, what you've got in the East Midlands, you've got Leicester, Nottingham, Derby, Northampton, areas with high black and minority ethnic populations, high, not as in extremely high, but 10-12% of the city's population, and then you've got vast areas of rural rural areas, such as Lincolnshire, where people have got a completely different lifestyle completely. We've been out on the doorstep, and you're right. I mean, one of the biggest, issues that we face on the doorstep is immigration. There's no doubt about that. Immigration, the two biggest things spoken about are immigration and UKIP. There's no doubt about that.
Can we just get a call in, and we'll come back to you. Wahid is in Bradford. Good evening, Wahid.
Shafiq, how are you doing? Okay.
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, everything's fine, yeah. Thanks for taking the call. It's just, I just kind of find it a bit weird, like with these three parties, basically. In actual fact, they've never sort of delivered their services or regulations. There's no quality behind anything that they've actually done for this country, in a sense, compared to what's been done in the past and everything with the old type of leaders that we've had. Looking at some of the policies that they've actually created and made, they've never really thought about this. Although the amount of data that's been available out there to see what the issues are going to be, what the problems are going to be for this country, whether it's to do with the NHS or the services that we've got in this country, or whether it's to join the EU and what's going to happen and what we need to be doing, how it's going to affect our services here. All these things, the data has always been there, but they've never sort of thought about this data. All they've thought about is actually putting this across, try to join something, do something which is going to improve relationships out there with major companies or big sort of I don't know, huge like petrol nations or whatever, countries that are delivering
services,
industry or capitalism or whatever.
Okay.
But I don't see with these three parties they've really sort of done anything in terms of addressing the issues and putting quality behind their regulations. Only now we're seeing with issues on the banks being regulated. But even now, we're still seeing issues that they're bringing across with the bonuses and everything.
Okay, thank you very much, Wahid. I'm going to cut you short because we're really running out of time, and I just want to kind of tie up this issue of immigration. Issan, you were saying?
Yeah, basically I'm saying that it is an issue on the doorstep, and people are concerned. But we found that once we actually tackled people and spoke to them, about the misconceptions that exist out there, the myths that exist out there about immigration, once we tackled them and told them about the figures of immigration in terms of net migration versus net immigration and the net value that immigration brings. I mean, actually, European migrants are net contributors to the UK, and people don't know that. And actually, they put in more money into the system than they take out. They're less likely to take benefits, and they're less likely to live in social housing. So all of these myths, once you actually tackle people on the doorstep, many people that I've spoken to have said, okay, we didn't know that. So I think there are newspapers like the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, other sort of newspapers, Express, etc., Sun, Star. Those sort of papers are actually putting out a lot of negativity about Europe, a lot of xenophobia and Islamophobia as well. The only way we can tackle this is actually by meeting people on the doorstep, because the counter media is not strong enough to be able to overcome the negative myths. But immigration is still an issue, and it needs to be tackled.
Paul, I mean, obviously you've seen the three parties or the four parties battle it out for appearing who can be the toughest on the issue of immigration. But you were saying, I think, earlier on, that we should be saying immigration is a positive thing.
Well, I mean, the reason I interrupted you, Shafiq, when you were asking the question, when I said immigration is not a problem, that's what we need to say loud and clear, because there is, as you mentioned, there is this narrative that it's a problem. And it's based on sort of myths that you were talking about. It's based on racist lies. That doesn't mean that everyone who's taken in with some of those arguments is racist. But I think you're right, we need to challenge those myths. We need to bust those myths. Actually, immigration is a positive thing. Our National Health Service would collapse without immigration. Migrant workers contribute to our communities. We're all immigrants. I'm an immigrant. You know, Britain is built on immigration. And actually, if people start criticising immigrants, it's actually shifting the focus on the solution to the problems. You know, the far right, the fascists want to blame immigrants for problems that immigrants did not create. So it's a diversion from trying to find solutions to the problems that all our communities face. So we need to, in order to challenge the fascists and the likes of Nick Griffin, we have to tackle racism as well. Immigration is positive. Multiculturalism should be celebrated.
And I mean, I know you're non-party or political in that sense, but you don't think any of the political parties, the four main parties, have been positive about immigration, banging the drums about immigration?
I think there are, for instance, a lot of Labour politicians who've spoken very favourably in terms of the benefits of immigration. But I think the general narrative is very negative, and it needs to be challenged,
Can I just come in there?
So let's talk about the Tory party's outlook about immigration. I mean, your party seems to be obsessed with... Let me at least ask the question, Ashgar, before you get onto your script. The issue is two. You're totally obsessed.
There's two issues here. There's two issues with immigration. One, when the economy is really bad...
Immigration in Europe. The two issues that seem to get your blood boiling in the Tory party.
Let me just answer a question. There's two issues there. As soon as the economy is bad, people just jump on the bandwagon and say immigration, immigration. That's the major factor. Two, the people are against because the number of people coming into the country, they're just relying on benefit. They're not paying into the system. If they're paying into the system, then the people will be less concerned.
So they're not paying into the system?
That's what the people...
Which people?
Particularly the Eastern European.
Well, they're all working, most of them.
There are some majority of the working. There are some people.
So what's the problem?
That's what the biggest issue is. They're not against the immigrations. They're against the systems. The system we created, particularly the
system which your party created in the 18 years you were in power.
We're trying to mend the system.
What the system that you created?
The benefit system. The benefit system.
Can I just say
the benefit system needs to sort it out.
Issan.
Can I just say that actually you're talking about mending the system for a group of people who are net contributors to the system. Yeah. And that's where the problem lies, because actually what you're doing is you're demonizing people, and whilst you're demonizing people, you're creating fear and division.
No, I don't think we do. I think we're encouraging people to go out, and you're better in working than rather sitting on backside and just relying on
and again, the reason why that's happening is because you're trying to out-KIP UKIP.
No, I think UKIP just...
Because let's see Tamoor and then I'll bring you back in.
I think we need to understand, again, it goes back to my point about the Tories obsessing over Europe.
There's two issues, Europe and
immigration.
Hold on,
I'm coming to that.
Oh, sorry.
What I forgot to mention was their obsession over Europe and immigration go hand in hand. Because it wouldn't be the Tory party without those two subjects being at the heart of it. And I think what is absolutely clear, and the contrast that we see from when David Cameron became leader in 2005, was we had then a new branding, a new Conservative Party, more modern, more compassionate, and very much the drive then was to do anything but to talk about Europe and immigration, to go away from the typical image that had been created of the Conservative Party. But what we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years is the Conservative Party not being able to be the party of the centre, but coming back to being the party of the centre-right. Again, because they're losing their core support, they feel that they have to portray messages obsessing over Europe, tackling immigration, and inherently...
I mean, you had 13 years of a Labour government, and you must have passed 10 or 13 years. 13 years of a Labour government, you must have passed 10 or 11 immigration bills. You have an immigration bill every year.
And plus, Jack Straw admitted himself that he didn't know what was the number coming in, what was the number going in. He has
you don't know that either.
We are better positioned.
But it's true, the Labour Party were obsessed with Europe because they passed 11 or 12 immigration bills. An immigration bill every single year.
I think there's a big contrast between the Labour Party in government and the Conservative Party in government.
12 immigration bills and, I don't know.
What we're talking about here is the obsession of the political parties, giving the message to the wider electorate.
Well, you were as obsessed in government as they are.
I don't think so. I don't think we were
12 immigration bills?
I don't think
13.
we were being very anti-immigration as the Conservative Party are today. And as the gentleman from the Liberal Democrats said, it's all about trying to outdo UKIP. because there's a threat from the right wing of the political spectrum about this anti-immigration feeling, and the Conservative Party feel that they have to come back onto their natural territory, and they are naturally an anti-immigrant party, and they have been from the 60s and 70s. If you look at history, they were very much against the immigration from South Asia.
But they were the party under Harold Macmillan that went out and invited people from the South Commonwealth.
Can I just say,
slightly unfair for you to distort history.
No, absolutely. I'm not distorting history at all.
We were the party when people came from Uganda in '72. We let them in. We are not against the immigration.
If you go back in history, there are a number of Conservative posters, certainly from the 1964 general election, which will tell you clearly the Conservatives' feelings towards immigrants coming into the country.
As much as like a history lesson. But let's look about today, Ashgar. So apart from the issue of immigration in Europe, is there any other issue the Conservatives offer the people watching this at home?
I think they have to decide today. What's the major issue today to everyone? It's the economy.
It's the economy.
It's the economy, the job, the housing, the schools, the hospital. Who will provide them better? That's
so why are you talking about immigration in Europe?
Well, immigration.
Every other Conservative MP, every other Conservative minister, every other cabinet minister, you ask the question, it's Europe, it's immigration, it's Europe, it's immigration.
I think...
Why are you as a party so obsessed with these two issues? Does that make you feel uncomfortable?
No, I don't think they're obsessed with that. No, they just want to get the fact right. They want to give the effect to the people. They're not obsessed with it. I think they're just saying the thing, we have to have services in place, schools. Just imagine if you got a large influx of people coming in, if you don't provide the services to them.
As we go into an economic crisis, this is very dangerous, scapegoating. You know, and it also has to be said, the experience across Europe with the rise of Golden Dawn, fascist party in Greece, France, the Front National, is every concession that is made by the mainstream right to racism against immigrants has actually benefited the fascists. It hasn't taken votes away from them. So it's absolutely vital that we don't...
I don't think it's Conservative. I don't think Conservative...
I'll come back to you a second. I just want to get... Issan, we've got about 2-3 minutes left. And I just want to get final comments from all of you. I assume that's your final kind of...
Can I just on that,
just one thing,
very briefly, TUC and MCB have called a major demonstration in London on the 22nd of March against racism, against fascism and against scapegoating of immigrants.
Immigrants, okay, excellent. Issan?
Yeah, basically, I think this election coming up on May the 22nd is really about the realisation that Europe is a very, very important player in the lives of British people. And I want people out there to understand that the jobs and the economy, Europe is our biggest export market. Europe is our biggest partner in the commercial life of this country. It's our biggest net inward investor into this country. And in terms of the freedom of movement, that's very important in order to drive the economy and the engines of this economy at a moment when the economy is beginning to grow. We need people, we need a trained workforce, and please do not demonize those communities who are working here legally and under European law. And please remember the Liberal Democrats are the only party of in, we're the only truly European party, the pro-European party, out of all the mainstream parties.
Okay, very quickly, 20 seconds, Tamoor. Sorry, I apologise, I've been told time's short.
No problem. I think these European elections are very important, certainly in terms of the UAF work on defeating the British National Party. And here in the Northwest, we've got an important task of defeating Nick Griffin. I think the Labour Party are the only party that's speaking about the issues that matter to the people, about the cost of living crisis, about the rising energy bills, about people's wages not increasing. And really, people need to ask themselves at this election, are they any better off than they were in 2009, 2010. And I think with the increase in Labour representation in the European Parliament, with people like Theresa Griffin, Afzal Khan...
Okay, and a host of other candidates, and Liberal Democrat candidates, and Conservative candidates as well.
Candidates to really represent people in the European Parliament.
There are sorry, Ashgar, 1 second. There are Conservative candidates, Liberal Democrats, there's UKIP candidates, there's...
I think people out there, they need to ask question themselves. What is important to them today is economy and who will represent better in Europe. The Conservatives are the only one that will represent the people better in Europe. than all the economy.
Thank you very much. I apologise if I'm cutting you very short, but we reached the end of the show. Thank you so much to my guest for coming tonight. At least the weather's not as bad as it was last week. We will carry on this theme. We're going to bring you MEPs, members of the European Parliament, who are actually in their seats. We will expect to hold that once the campaign, once the European Parliament finishes in the next 6 weeks, and then they will be free to come on. We'll bring you a number of debates on the local elections, and we'll bring you an extensive discussions and debates about the issue of the BNP and the far right. Paul has agreed to continue to come once a month to one show dedicated to the issue of the European election. So one show between now and the election every single month. The reason this show is such a success is because of you all at home. Thank you so much for joining me. Join me next week, same time. We're talking about counter-terrorism and the government's prevent strategy with a very important issue and discussion about the issue that affects many people within the Muslim community and across the country. Wherever you are watching this around the world, take care of yourself and each other. Good night.